So in this video we're going to take a look at queries in databases for computer science. So in the last video we spoke about the different keywords for databases, we talked about relational, flat file, all those kind of things. Now we need to look at how we actually access data. Now queries are what we use to find or extract data from a database table. Now we can pretty much specify any criteria we want. So here's an example here which says select the first name and surname from the customer table where the date of birth is before the 1st of January 2000. Now that is a little bit like SQL, which we'll talk about later in the video, but that's a query. That's saying it's going to get that information for everybody before that date. It's almost like a question we give the computer. Now these queries involve Boolean operators and, or, and not. So if you look at this example here, so if I select first name and surname from the customer table where the date of birth is greater than the 1st of January and the gender is M. So what we're doing is we're looking for everybody who was older than 2000. So if you look here, we've got Alice Smith born after 2000 and Fred Richards. Bob Bloggs, he's too old. So it's got two criteria there, but then it's also saying and their gender must be an M, so it means we're going to return Fred Richards in that example. So in this one we're going to be using the OR operator. So this one we're asking for the first name and last name of people born before the 1st of January 2000 and after the 1st of January 2001. So it doesn't want people essentially in 2000, so it's going to get Alice because she was born after the 1st of the 1st 2001, and Bob is going to return as well because he was born before 2000, but Fred was born in 2000, so he's not going to meet that criteria. So this one will return two names. And then we've got the not Boolean operator. This is where it's going to return about everybody who is the opposite essentially of male, which is female. So where the gender is not M, it's going to get anything else. So even if we had a third gender in there or anything like that, it would pull up everything that isn't M. So in the exam you need to do a thing that's called query by example. So query by example is a method of searching a database stating the criteria to be searched. So we use this in a database management system to make queries easier to perform. Now here is an example of how you'd use query by example in Access. So in a database management system like Access, what you can do is you can create queries using a query by example table. So what we do is if in Access I go to create and then go to query design and select the table I want, you can see I've got a very similar sort of screen to what you'd get in the exam. So I can choose the kind of things I want to see. So let's go for, I'll just click them all on. We can see everything. And what I can do is I can say, right, so for I want to find out all of the males that I've applied for whatever reason. So what I can do is I can just put in for title, I can put in Mr. like that. And you see, if you look on here, there's Mr. and Mrs. So there's women and men. So if I do this and then view that, you can see that it's got rid of all the women and it's just all the men there. So that's worked. So that is an easy way of getting data. Now, if you want to have two criteria, so I might want to put Mrs. or Miss because I'm looking for everybody but the men. So I've got MS and Mrs. in there. Do that again, and you see I've got all the women. So what I've done there is I've used query by example to perform a query. Nice and easy. Now, this particular set of data doesn't have anything in terms of like scores or anything like that, but it does have interview times. Now I'm just going to check very quickly that it's date time, which it is. So what I could do is I want to find all of the male applicants before a certain time. So let's say before 12 o'clock. Get rid of that hash, don't need that. Okay, so I can see that I've got Mr. Waleed Patel at 9 o'clock and Mr. Nasir Salam at 11 o'clock. You see that's worked because I've just done in my query, I've said less than 12 o'clock, so it's like a numerical value, and that is how you can do a query in Access. That is very similar to how you do your queries in your exam. Okay, so here's an example of a table I've made. So it's a bunch of cars with manufacturers and whatnot. So I've got Fords, Audis, Fiats and now Suzuki. So if I went to a query by example, I could do something, fill in a form a little bit like this. So it's very similar to what we did in Access, because it's pretty much identical. This is the kind of thing you'll get in the exam. It'll look like this. So I've stated what table, so it's cars, so it says cars there. I've said the field, so manufacturer, I want to see engine size and top speed. Now I've not put in the car name in there because what I've said about in this criteria, they'll tell you what they want to see. So in this one, I've left one out on purpose. So I want to see all the manufacturers of cars that I've got an engine size less than 1500 cc and return those values. So you'll get something like this or this, where you're looking for, you might have to say, write a query that will get all of the cars that are Audis that are greater than 140 miles per hour. Now for that example I just said, you'd probably have to have another column in here with the car name, so you can see which Audis, but it depends on the criteria they will give you. They will tell you what they want to see, but you'll have to be able to fill in some of these forms that will return that criteria. Now, in the real world, obviously we'd use the query wizard in Access to query an Access database. However, in computer science, and in programming especially if you're doing web programming, you see a thing called SQL or MySQL or SQLite and things like that. And this is all the same sort of thing. Different flavors of structured query language, which is a special language made to interact with databases. So for example, write in the words select star from customers, that would select every single thing from the customers table and then show you it. So that'd get everything. So you could do select star from customers where age is less than 30, and that would return everything from the database that has got an age less than 30 and things like that. Now for the exam, you don't need to know SQL, but it's something you will definitely use in the future if you go into programming or web development. Now if you're interested, W3 schools have a good set of tasks that you can use if you're interested. And hopefully you understood databases there, you understand a query. Now what I would probably do is, if you have got access to be able to do this, is copy the sort of layout I've done for my query by example, and then maybe just find some database examples and then practice making some queries. That'd probably be quite a good idea to just get used to doing that sort of format. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.